And we're back with another episode of Before You Buy, our show where we give you a little bit of straight up gameplay and our first impression of the latest games releasing and also some old favorites. If you recall, Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out in 2017 and was probably one of the most divisive games ever, not necessarily due to its gameplay, which was better than the first, which was pretty solid, but because it was over-monetized and, unfortunately, progression suffered horrifically due to this. However, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is a different game in 2019 than it was in 2018, and actually it's kinda worth $24, which is what it costs now on most platforms. Just to get right into it, I've noted when I've talked about both DICE Battlefront games that I actually rather like the way that they've mechanically handled the game. The issues have ranged between the two games. The first, the big problem was content, there just wasn't much of it. And the second was loot boxes. Loot boxes basically were introduced and totally screwed up the way this game progressed. Because there was so much focus on getting the player to feel like they should put real money into the game suffered a great deal, as is the case pretty much every time that's the focus of a game. Any game. However, things began to change in a big way for Star Wars Battlefront 2 in December 2018. A pretty drastic update happened that changed the game pretty significantly. Now, to answer the big questions about exactly what's in the game now, let's just go up front. There are still loot boxes in the game, however, they are not tied to progression in any way, they are only cosmetic, and you cannot spend money on them at all. Now, you can directly purchase cosmetic items now, which I think taking the gambling aspect out of the game was, it's a good idea. That was pretty much what everybody was angry about. But it wasn't just that people were angry about it, it's that it had tangible effects on exactly how everything worked, making it so that the only purchases you can do in the game are cosmetic. While there is still an argument that it's not super great, it's a drastic improvement from the way things were at the start, where there was just a ridiculous grind to get star cards, to unlock characters, so on and so forth, which, by the way, every single character in the game available at start of game. For me, these were all the absolute biggest gripes at launch, and they were remedied starting from about May 2018 onward. However, as you know, the campaign is not incredible, it's not bad, it's not daring or anything like that, the really stimulating or exciting. It's kind of a generic Star Wars story that could have been a lot better. Oh well, though, that's neither a new problem or really the thing I think any of us are really terribly concerned about at this point. It's more the 2 years of development on the multiplayer that really matters here. Another very popular mode is Capital Supremacy, which is a lot like Galactic Assault, except for there are a few things that change around, some bonuses that change, etc. When you complete the first round, whoever is ahead gets an advantage in AI reinforcements. You get ships to try to accelerate the match. In a lot of ways, it's Galactic Assault on steroids. I basically spend all of my time in these modes, not just because I like them best, but also because it seems like everybody likes them best. It's kind of hard to find a game in other modes, and if you hit quick play, which is the easiest way to get into a game, it's most likely going to be Galactic Assault or Capital Supremacy. That's not bad, though. I mean, if you're looking for a more traditional FPS team deathmatch style match, Blast is often pretty dead, just so you're aware. But if I'm just being totally straight with you, I'm not playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 for team deathmatch. There were a couple of quality of life improvements, not just for Capital Supremacy, but also just in co-op. You can actually signal which capture point you're going for now, which is a help for your team. The same update that contained those allows you to play now as the Sith Trooper, as the Jet Trooper, as the Ovesian Gunner, or the Kafek Spy. I haven't really had a massive amount of experience with any of them, but I have been doing everything I can to play the Jet Trooper, because I actually enjoy the Jet Trooper quite a bit. I was always playing as a Jet Trooper in old school Battlefront, and there are some differences in the Jet Trooper in this game, but I'm gonna go ahead and say I think I might actually like this a little bit better. The Jet Trooper controls somewhere between like a vehicle and what you would expect if you used to play Star Wars Battlefront. there's a little bit more directional control. I mean, if you want to power yourself through a hallway with this jet trooper, you can, and it's actually incredibly fun too. So in some respects, I kind of think that this is an improvement over what you might have expected. This version of the jet trooper has only really been in existence for a day now, so it really feels like a fantastic addition to the game. And although I haven't really spent the same amount of time with the other classes, this is by far the most different class that was added to this version of Battlefront, and I'm happy to report it's very good. Battlefront 2 has obviously been always a very good-looking game. However, I do feel it has a little bit of tightness to it didn't before, particularly in face models. They did update the face models, and particularly the newer heroes just look more like the people who are playing them. The originals kind of looked pretty fine already, but like, for instance, look at Rey's face. That looks a lot more like Daisy Ridley for real, in my opinion at least. Are there any big graphical overhauls? Not necessarily, but as content has been added to this game, it's always been gorgeous. Like, there's a nice big variety of maps in this game that all look very different from each other, and even like Felucia is just a really pretty map with bizarre otherworldly fauna on it. Outside of maps and modes, though, some mechanical updates that are really nice is particularly the lightsaber combat. Before the update, lightsabers were pretty much a spam fest. You were never really doing anything other than trying to press the button more or better than the other person. You could try to combine lightsabers and force powers to maybe luck your way into some kind of a combo, but they've made it a lot more tactical. You can't swing the lightsaber when you run out of stamina, so that's a big thing. And if you run out of stamina while you're blocking, you get full damage as well as get pushed back. And these things sound super simple, but they're really a big help in making the lightsaber combat into something rather than just hoping that you're able to hit them. If you're smart, you can kind of force certain tactics that cause them to run out of stamina quicker. Abilities beyond that, though, have been rebalanced. And not just the hero's abilities, but regular abilities as well. For instance, stun grenades don't just like lock you forever anymore, you can actually get away from them. There's also even smaller updates that are nice. For instance, the crosshairs dim if you can't fire. Let's say you're deploying a weapon and you don't have the ability to fire, it just has that nice little visual signifier that you can't do anything right now with your weapon. It's not a major thing, but a lot of the things over time have not been major. It's just they've added up into a much better package than what was shipped. And that's ultimately what we have to talk about in the tail end of this before you buy. The first DICE Battlefront had a big lack of content. The second wasn't so bad. It obviously had other problems, but that was a thing that they had listened to the community about and made sure that they launched with a fair amount of content, and all added content going forward would be free. And now, 2 years later, that amount of content is pretty high. As of the Rise of Skywalker update, there's actually 6 new big maps that are really cool. And if you didn't personally get into Star Wars Battlefront 2 when it first came out, I'm gonna have to say the Rise of Skywalker update is actually an awesome point to start playing. I had put it down for a while, like I'd experienced some of the improvements over the last year, but I hadn't been playing it for a while. Picking it back up has been a joy. It's honestly everything it should have been at launch, and I don't think we should just forget that it launched in such a horrific state. It's important that these publishers understand that they're sort of forced mangling of games in the name of profit. It's not tolerable, it's not good, and they're certainly not going to be seeing the same kinds of margins that they were if you buy the game now. The standard edition of the game costs $24.99 now, and that's obviously a lot lower than the price of any of the editions of the original release. But is it worth that money? It absolutely is. I would say that if they had waited these couple of years and launched it in this state for $60, $70, even $80, depending on which edition you got, we're talking about a Star Wars game that is genuinely good and genuinely worth it. It's a shame that it has taken as long as it has for EA to bring decent Star Wars games to fruition, but hey, we're finally there. No real use in complaining over actually having a good experience in a Star Wars game. EA does need to take note of exactly what's going on with Battlefront 2 at this point, as well as Jedi Fallen Order, because in the future, we need these types of games. Games that you buy, they are what you expect them to be, and are just generally enjoyable. It's really weird that in 2019, those are like selling points for games. But we're there, and fortunately, Battlefront 2 clears the hurdle now. If you like the old school Battlefront, this is now worth playing. If you want a competitive Star Wars FPS, it's no longer about grinning and bearing it, it's actually enjoyable, fun, and definitely worth the cost. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is worth your time. I'd very much recommend this game at this point. Check it out. It's currently available for purchase on pretty much every platform as the Star Wars Battlefront 2 Celebration Edition. Have you been playing this game? Did you notice that it's good now? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. What's your favorite hero to play as? If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to enable all notifications. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at FalconHero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.